Hello. Today I'd like to talk about YouTube. It's one of the biggest and most well-known sites on the internet. While there are other video sharing sites out there, no other comes close to the amount of traffic that YouTube generates daily. It's reached into the lives of people on a global scale, and in the process has become one of the most frequented websites on the planet. Users have uploaded millions and millions of videos that reflect the interests, leanings and preoccupations of a large swathe of humanity, a virtualized microcosm of global culture, a world within a world. YouTube is a site that defies simple definition. While at its core a video sharing website, it's become a cultural icon that has entered into the global psyche. While the most popular YouTube channels tend to be controlled by large corporate entities, there is still a large number of people that use it as a social networking tool, uploading videos that can be viewed by anyone with internet access and the necessary bandwidth. The types of networks this creates are complex, and only a few scholars have attempted to map them out so far. This presentation will explore one of these networks, a network that exists around videos of ceremonial Batá drumming. Ceremonial Batá drumming, performed on 3 separate drums known singularly and collectively as Batá, is an important part of the Afro-Cuban ritual complex that supports the practice of the religion commonly known as Santeria. While Santeria is a Cuban religion originating from the spiritual beliefs of the Yoruba people of West Africa, today it has become a global religion, predominantly practiced by adherents in the Americas, but also in Europe and in Australia. In the Americas, the practice has been spread by Cuban immigrants, who, having established Santeria outside of Cuba, began initiating people from other Spanish-speaking nationalities. Later, this began to include African Americans and Anglo-Americans in the USA. Meanwhile, other people from nations outside of the Americas often became involved after traveling to Cuba and being exposed to Santeria, particularly from the 1990s onwards. This has been reinforced by the more recent arrival to Europe and Australia of Cuban immigrants who practice Santeria. Santeria practice is based on the worship of the Orisha, spiritual entities that govern the affairs of humanity. Practitioners undergo various levels of initiation that validate and create ever-deepening relationships with the Orisha, that they be better able to communicate with them and seek the Orisha's assistance in their lives. This communication takes on a very real physical form during the practice of ceremonial Batá performance, as the participants seek to bring down an Orisha through the act of spirit possession. As Santeria expands globally, tensions have become apparent between those who seek to maintain traditional forms of worship and behaviour, and those who believe that practice must adapt to modern conditions. Nowhere is this tension more apparent than in the emerging practice of uploading ceremonial Batá videos to YouTube. While oral tradition prohibits the filming of these ceremonies, there appears to be a proportion of practitioners both in Cuba and abroad who do not accept this prohibition. These videos not only display the sacred Batá drums, but also possession and initiation rituals that occur during Batá drumming ceremonies. While these rituals were previously observable only in a ceremonial context, they are now available to anyone with a computer and the necessary internet speed. This presentation will seek to outline and address the relationship dynamic that arises when a previously localized traditional religious practice is transferred onto YouTube. After outlining the historical emergence of publicly displayed Batá drumming, I will provide an overview of production and consumption patterns of ceremonial Batá videos on YouTube. 2 case studies will be used to illustrate the types of videos that are publicly accessible and the reaction generated by them. This will be followed by a discussion as to the consequences this publication may have on the practice of ceremonial Batá drumming. The appearance of ceremonial Batá drumming on YouTube can be seen as the latest manifestation of a process of publicization and expansion that began in Cuba in the 1930s. The first public display of Batá drumming occurred in 1936 and was sponsored by the Cuban scholar Fernando Ortiz. Ortiz invited 3 ceremonial Batá players to perform for a small conference on Afro-Cuban organology and musical structure. At this time, the music of the Batá drums had never been heard outside of a ceremonial context. The Batá were made especially for this performance. While physically and sonically similar to the Batá used in ceremonies, they differed in one key way. They did not contain the fundamento, or foundation, of the orisha called Anya. Anya is the orisha that gives ceremonial Batá their power to communicate with all the other orisha. Consecration ceremonies are performed on Batá that are to be used in ceremonies, and the ingredients that constitute Anya are then placed inside the Batá. As such, these Batá, known as Batá de Fundamento, are treated as sacred objects by the religious community. The Batá players who performed for Ortiz during his conference created what is reputedly the first set of Batá that were to be used in a performance outside of ceremonies. These became known as Auricula Batá. After Fidel Castro came to power in 1959, the new revolutionary government instituted cultural programs that sought to promote what they saw as expressions of authentic Cuban culture. This saw the religious practices of Santeria come to be performed in public at stage spectacles. These simulations took the performative elements of singing, dancing, and drumming and crafted them into shows where the main focus was to provide entertainment, and these are known as folkloric performances. As at Ortiz's conference, they were invariably performed on Auricula Batá. Since the 1990s, public performances of Batá drumming have become a common spectacle in Cuba and are often geared towards providing entertainment for foreign tourists. Performances are always conducted using Auricula Batá. Auricula Batá have become the accepted instrument of dissemination for the traditional musical repertoire of ceremonial Batá drumming in public, non-religious settings. Batá that contain Anya are reserved for ceremonial purposes. During my fieldwork in Cuba, I was repeatedly told that it is forbidden to take photos or film of these Batá, whether they are being performed or not. When I've queried ceremonial Batá players as to the reason for this prohibition, they have stressed that it shows a lack of respect towards Anya. But while this prohibition is often stated, my fieldwork in Cuba and on YouTube show that it is being contested by practitioners of Santeria, both in Cuba and abroad, who are not only filming Batá, but through YouTube are publicly posting images of Batá de Fundamento performed during ceremonies. It's impossible to accurately determine the number of ceremonial Batá videos that are on YouTube. Using the search term Batá Fundamento returns 2,470 results, but some of these results are either duplicates or unrelated. I've compiled a data set of 160 that I'm using for analysis for my research. This data helps us to understand the distribution of ceremonial Batá performance globally. Over 50% of videos are being filmed in Cuba, with about 30% of videos coming out of the USA. These two countries are the biggest centers of Santeria practice globally. While Cuba is where ceremonial Batá performance is most common, the USA has a large and growing body of Santeria practitioners. The rest of the videos are filmed in Central America, particularly Mexico and Puerto Rico, while there are a number of smaller number that are being filmed in Europe, namely in Spain, Italy, and Switzerland. But while the majority are being filmed in Cuba, they are all being uploaded from other countries. While the global digital divide continues to contract, Cuba still suffers from very poor internet service. Most people have limited access, and the available bandwidth cannot support video viewing or uploading. The statistics tell us that many people are traveling to Cuba, filming these ceremonies, and then posting them on YouTube. Over 50% are being uploaded from the USA, while the rest are being uploaded from Central America and Europe. While it might be easy to assume that Cubans are being left out of the YouTube loop and taken advantage of by foreigners, my experience shows that Cubans are just as likely to want to take advantage of the promotional opportunities YouTube can provide, just as any other person would outside of Cuba. During fieldwork in Cuba, I suggested to a ceremonial Batá player that I might be able to film part of a Batá ceremony and put it on YouTube. He didn't object to this at all and was actually quite enthusiastic about the idea. His willingness to participate in this practice points towards the active role Cubans are playing in this process, regardless of the fact that they cannot view or upload video themselves. But while Cubans may be aware of YouTube and its power to reach a wide audience, it's other countries, particularly the USA, where this practice is really centered.